here is your psychology-based script, psychology of procrastination. When you actually care too much, there is a version of procrastination that nobody talks about. Not the lazy kind, not the distracted kind, but the kind that quietly lives inside people who care so deeply about something that they cannot bring themselves to start. If you have ever sat in front of a blank page, a half-opened email, or an untouched project and felt a strange paralysis take over, not because you didn't care, but precisely because you cared too much. This is for you. What you are experiencing is not a character flaw. It is not laziness wearing a clever disguise. It is something far more human, far more complex, and once you understand it, far more healable than you may believe. Most conversations about procrastination point fingers at motivation. We are told to try harder, wake up earlier, build better habits, or find our why. But for a specific group of people, often the most thoughtful, most conscientious, most emotionally invested individuals in any room, the problem is never a lack of caring. The problem is an overwhelming abundance of it. When something matters to you deeply, the stakes in your mind quietly inflate. What begins as a meaningful goal slowly becomes a high-pressure performance, and your nervous system begins to treat it less like an opportunity and more like a threat. This is where psychology steps in with something important. The procrastination driven by caring too much is almost always rooted in what researchers call fear of failure, but not the fear most people imagine. This is not the fear of being told you did something wrong. This is the more intimate, more devastating fear that if you try your absolute best and still fall short, you will have definitive proof that you are not enough. Procrastination, in this context, becomes a form of emotional self-preservation. If you never fully try, you never fully find out. The attempt stays protected in the realm of potential, and potential, unlike reality, can never disappoint you. Think about what this looks like in real life. It looks like the writer who has a story burning inside of them, who thinks about it constantly, who has journals filled with ideas, and yet never sits down to write the first chapter. It looks like the professional who spends weeks preparing for a presentation, rearranging notes, redesigning slides, convincing themselves they are not ready yet, because ready feels like a moving horizon they can never quite reach. It looks like the person who genuinely wants to reach out to someone they love, who has mentally rehearsed the conversation 100 times, but keeps finding reasons to wait one more day. In every one of these cases, the delay is not indifference. It is the opposite of indifference. It is a person standing at the edge of something that means the world to them, terrified to step forward because falling would hurt too much. There is also a deeper psychological thread woven through this pattern, and it is called perfectionism. Not the surface-level kind that insists on neat handwriting or organized shelves, but the existential kind that ties your sense of worth directly to the quality of your output. When you believe, even subconsciously, that what you produce is a direct reflection of who you are as a person, every creative act, every project, every attempt becomes a referendum on your value. The blank page is no longer a blank page. It is a mirror. And some days, the thought of looking into that mirror and not liking what you see is simply too much to bear. So you reorganize your desk instead. You check your phone. You tell yourself you will begin when the time feels right. And the time never quite feels right, because the fear never quite goes away on its own. What makes this particularly difficult is that people who procrastinate out of deep caring are often not recognized as struggling at all. From the outside, they appear thoughtful, careful, detail-oriented. They are rarely the ones who miss deadlines dramatically or fail to show up. Instead, they submit things at the very last second. They over-deliver on the things they do complete. They exhaust themselves trying to make everything meaningful. The world often rewards them for their thoroughness without ever realizing the invisible weight they are carrying. The hours of mental labor that happened before a single visible step was taken, the emotional tax of caring so intensely in a world that rarely acknowledges how much caring costs, and the cost is real. Over time, this pattern begins to affect more than just productivity. It seeps into relationships where the fear of not being a good enough friend, partner, or parent can lead to emotional withdrawal disguised as busyness. It shapes self-identity, where a person who consistently does not act on what they love begins to quietly grieve the version of themselves they believe they are capable of becoming. It affects mental well-being in ways that are slow and erosive, not dramatic, but steady, a background hum of guilt, self-doubt, and unexpressed potential that grows louder the longer it goes unaddressed. So what do we do with all of this? The answer begins not with a productivity system, not with a stricter schedule, but with a fundamental shift in how you relate to imperfection. The psychological antidote to this kind of procrastination is not discipline. It is permission. Permission to begin badly. Permission to produce a first draft that disappoints you. Permission to send the imperfect email, to have the clumsy conversation, to show up to your own life in a way that is honest and incomplete, rather than polished and absent. Because here is what the fear never tells you. The version of you that tries imperfectly will always outgrow the version of you that waits for certainty. There is also profound healing in separating your identity from your output. You are not your project. You are not your presentation, your creative work, your performance, or the outcome of your most important relationships. You are the person who cares enough to try, and that caring itself, regardless of the result, is not nothing. It is everything. The willingness to sit with discomfort, to move through uncertainty, to put something real and vulnerable into the world even when the outcome is unknown. That is one of the most quietly courageous things a human being can do. Self-compassion research, pioneered by psychologist Kristen Neff, consistently shows that people who treat themselves with kindness after setbacks are not only emotionally healthier, but significantly more likely to try again after failure. Not because compassion lowers your standards, but because it removes the catastrophic sting from imperfection. When failing no longer means you are fundamentally broken, trying becomes something you can afford to do more often. The fear does not vanish, but it loses its authority over your behavior. If you recognize yourself in any of this, the invitation today is not to overcome your procrastination immediately. It is simply to name what is actually happening. To say to yourself, honestly and without judgment, I am not avoiding this because I don't care. I am avoiding this because I care so much it frightens me. That recognition alone is a form of grace. It moves you out of self-blame and into self-understanding, and self-understanding is always the first step toward genuine change. You are not broken, you are not lazy. You are someone who holds the things that matter to you with tremendous tenderness, and you deserve a relationship with yourself that holds you with that same tenderness in return. Start small, start scared, start imperfectly, but please start. The world is not waiting for your perfect version. It is waiting for your real one.